The white tablecloth at Bottega's gleamed, a perfect sterile canvas for the performance. Soft lighting caught the crystal wine glasses, making them sparkle. Through the massive west-facing windows, the Savannah River was a dark, glittering ribbon. I took a slow sip of Cabernet, letting the expensive tannins coat my tongue. It was a bitter anchor in the sea of my father's voice. Theodore Pierce raised his glass, his heavy signet ring catching the light. At 58, he still had the same commanding presence that dominated boardrooms and family dinners with equal, suffocating ease. "To my Bianca," he announced. His voice was pitched just loud enough for the nearby tables to turn, to admire the perfect family. Responsible, independent, and a true professional success. My sister Bianca, sitting across from me, straightened her spine inside a perfectly tailored burgundy blazer. Her smile was a masterpiece of practiced perfection. 27 years old and already the golden child, basking in praise she hadn't earned. She tucked a strand of honey blonde hair behind her ear. It was the same gesture she'd used in childhood right after receiving another gold star, another trophy, another moment in the spotlight that was meant for both of us. If you're watching this video, tell me where you're from or what time it is for you. My father turned to me. His smile tightened, a micro-expression so familiar it made my stomach clench. And to Karina. The enthusiasm in his voice evaporated. It was replaced by the patient, slightly disappointed tone he reserved just for me. "Maybe someday you'll get tired of just freelancing from your couch, honey, and find a real career." The words landed like a physical slap. I flinched. 4 years of my life. 4 years of building my business from nothing. 16-hour days, shipping orders until my hands cracked and bled from cardboard cuts and packing tape. All of it, my entire world dismissed in a single condescending sentence. I set my wine glass down. The delicate stem felt like it would shatter between my fingers. "Well, in that case," I said, my voice cutting through the polite murmur of the restaurant, "I guess Bianca doesn't need my $3,500 support anymore." Silence fell over the table. It was heavy and immediate. Bianca froze, her wine glass suspended halfway to her lips, her eyes, wide and terrified, locked on mine. My father's fork clattered against his fine china plate. The Merlot in his glass trembled. "What? What are you talking about, Karina?" His voice was suddenly sharp, stripped of its public charm. "The monthly transfers," I said. I pulled out my phone and opened the banking app, the bright screen illuminating my face. "I've been sending Bianca $3,500 every single month for the past 2.5 years. Theodore's eyes darted between us, his brain working. That's impossible. That would be over $105,000, I finished for him. To be exact. I slid the phone across the polished table. "Here, see for yourself." The transaction history was a long, damning list. $3,500 to Bianca Pierce. Over and over. I sent it so she could maintain this illusion of success you're so proud of. "What illusion?" Theodore demanded, his voice rising. A couple at the next table glanced over, their expressions curious. "The illusion that she's an assistant manager at Nolan's making $80 grand, I said, my gaze fixed on my sister. Her actual salary is $52,000 a year, as a store supervisor, a job she's had for 3 years. I didn't look away from her. "Isn't that right, Bianca?" Bianca's perfect composure finally, devastatingly cracked. Her lower lip trembled. Her skin went pale. "Karina, please," she whispered. My father's face was a slow-motion car crash of emotion. Confusion bled into disbelief, which hardened instantly into a deep, unfamiliar shame. He stared at Bianca as if seeing a stranger. "Is this true?" he asked. She didn't answer. She just started to cry. She didn't need to say a word. 4 years ago, I started Crestwood Terrain Outfitters from my tiny 2-bedroom apartment on Tybee Island. I packed eco-friendly hiking gear on my living room floor. I used my kitchen table as a shipping station. My friends thought I was crazy, wasting my college degree. My family clearly thought I was a lazy disappointment. Last year, my little hobby brought in $620,000 in revenue. My profit was $320,000. I still drive my 2018 Subaru Forester. I still shop at discount stores. Every extra dollar went back into the business or into my sister's pocket. And every single family dinner included some version of, "When are you going to get a proper job, Karina?" I remembered my mother's voice when I was 8. She was explaining why she'd miss my school play for Bianca's dance recital. "Your sister just needs more attention, honey. You understand, right?" I always understood. I understood when I helped Bianca buy her college textbooks because she'd spent her money on a spring break trip. I understood when I covered her first apartment security deposit. And I understood when she called me 2.5 years ago, sobbing about credit card debt. I had spent my entire life supporting everyone else while accepting their complete undervaluation of me. I enabled Bianca's fantasy while I hid my own success. Not anymore. Bianca's tears started right on schedule. It was her signature move. The familiar manipulation tactic that had worked on our parents, on teachers, on boyfriends, and for 30 years, on me. "Please don't cut me off, Karina," she whispered, the tears tracking mascara down her cheeks. "My rent is due on Friday." I picked up my phone from the table. I opened the banking app again. I navigated to the recurring transfers page. "Then it's time you start living like someone who earns $52,000 a year," I said, "not like someone who earns $150,000. I tapped the Cancel Recurring Transfer button. I held the phone up so they could both see the bright green confirmation message. "Your recurring payment has been canceled." My father watched me in stunned silence. 30 years of carefully constructed family dynamics were shifting, cracking, and imploding right before his eyes. "You've been lying to us," he finally said to Bianca. His voice was hollow. "Not lying exactly," Bianca stammered, mascara smudging beneath her eyes. "Just stretching the truth." "While stretching my bank account," I added. My father turned to me, the confusion still etched in the lines around his eyes. "But why would you do this, Karina? Why would you give her this money? Why would you let us believe that you were the failure and she was the success?" I smiled, but there was no humor in it. "That's a good question, Dad. One I've been asking myself every single month for 2.5 years. I stood up, dropping my napkin beside my untouched tiramisu. "I should go. I have a shipment of hiking poles arriving at my apartment tomorrow morning." I looked right at him. "My little freelance job, you know." The restaurant seemed quieter as I walked away. I didn't look back. I felt like everyone in the room could hear the sound of Bianca's glass house shattering behind me. My key fob clicked, and the Subaru's lights flashed in the rain-slicked parking lot. Savannah's perpetual humidity hung in the air. Inside my apartment, I kicked off my boots and dropped my bag on the kitchen counter. The tiramisu I'd been looking forward to all week was still in its box, uneaten, a $12 casualty of the family implosion. The clock on the microwave read 9:17 p.m., too early for bed, too late to start packing orders. My mind was a hornet's nest, buzzing and angry after the restaurant. I walked into my home office, the converted second bedroom where Crestwood Terrain Outfitters was born. I sank into my desk chair and opened my laptop. The Excel file labeled Bianca Family Support stared back at me. 2.5 years of transfers, each one a $3,500 monthly reminder of my inability to say no. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I opened a browser and navigated to Bianca's Instagram page. The evidence I had deliberately ignored for years flooded the screen. March 2023. Bianca posing outside Nolan's employee entrance. Caption: Big promotion day. War's assistant manager, Saka career goals making moves. April 2023. Champagne flutes clinking at a rooftop bar. Caption: when your bonus hits just right. Work hard, play hard, Savannah Sunset, June 2023. A close-up of a new Gucci purse. Caption: just a little treat yourself. Damisha boss lady, Jung worth it. The dates. They aligned perfectly with my bank transfers. Every celebration, every luxury purchase, every fake career milestone was funded by money I earned, packing hiking backpacks until my shoulders ached. I navigated to my email. I searched, Bianca Pools Help. The original message appeared, dated January 17, 2023. Karina, I hate asking this, but I'm drowning. My credit card debt hit $18,000 and I'm 2 months behind on rent. I'm going to lose my apartment. I just need help for a few months until I get my finances straight. Please don't tell Dad. He'd be so disappointed. Love you, B. A few months. The phrase burned in my chest. I remembered the phone call that followed. Bianca, sobbing about predatory interest rates, promising to create a budget, swearing she'd pay me back every dime. My phone buzzed on the desk. A text from Bianca. You've ruined everything. I can't believe you humiliated me like that. I tossed the phone onto my desk. The screen lit up again. Karina, call me. We need to figure this out before my rent is due. I ignored it. I pulled a banker's box out from under my desk. Inside, under old tax returns, was a thick manila folder. Bianca's debts, 2023's. I pulled out the stack of credit card statements she had sent me as proof when she first begged for the loan. The spending pattern jumped out at me now, clear as day. Restaurants, clothing boutiques, weekend trips to Atlanta and Charleston. This wasn't the spending of someone in temporary trouble. This was the spending of someone living far beyond their means, by design. After my first transfer hit her account, her spending hadn't decreased. It had escalated. Spa weekends, designer shoes, Sunday brunches at rooftop bars while I was eating peanut butter sandwiches between packing orders. My chest tightened as the full, calculated long-term deception came into focus. Responsible, independent, and a true professional success. My father's voice echoed in my mind. He was the enabler. Bianca was the deceiver. The perfect team, reinforcing a family mythology where appearance was everything and reality was my problem. I opened another folder on my desktop, Business Expansion International. Inside was a detailed plan for taking Crestwood Terrain Outfitters global, shipping logistics to Canada and the UK, website translation services, inventory increases, marketing in foreign currencies, the projected cost for Phase 1, $35,000. Almost exactly what I would have sent Bianca over the next 10 months. This isn't cruel, I whispered to the empty room. It's necessary. For the first time in my adult life, I considered what might happen if I invested fully in my own success, instead of using my profits to patch the holes in my family's ego. The thought felt foreign, almost forbidden. 3 days later, I was in a meeting with a new sustainable fabric supplier, my phone on silent. We were deep in discussion about recycled nylon when a notification lit up my screen. Motion detected. Home office. My blood went cold. I excused myself, my voice tight. I'm sorry, I have to go. A family emergency. I raced home, my heart hammering against my ribs. I parked the Subaru halfway up the curb and ran to my apartment door. It was locked. I fumbled with my keys, shoved the door open, and stopped. The living room was fine. The kitchen was fine. I walked slowly toward the office. It was tossed. Papers were scattered. My desk drawers were open. The closet door was ajar. I looked at the shelf. My banker's boxes were pulled out, lids thrown on the floor. I knelt. The box labeled Bianca's Debts, 2023 was there. But the thick manila folder inside was gone. She had broken into my home. She had stolen the physical credit card statements. My phone rang. It was my friend, Simone. Hey, I'm 5 minutes out with coffee. You ready to talk about the restaurant nightmare? Get here now, I said, and use your key. I hung up. I sank into my desk chair, a strange calm settling over me. The adrenaline faded, replaced by something cold and hard. Simone burst in, holding 2 lattes. "Okay, what's going on? Oh my God." She stopped, her eyes taking in the ransacked office. "Karina, did you get robbed? Call the police, now." "No," I said. My voice was quiet. "What do you mean, no? Someone broke in." "I know who it was." I started picking up the scattered papers, my movements methodical. "It was Bianca." Simone stared at me. "She what? How do you know?" "This is the only thing she touched," I said, pointing to the empty banker's box. She took the folder of her old credit card statements, the physical proof I had from when she first asked for money. "Karina, that's breaking and entering. That's a felony. We are calling the cops." "No." I stood up, my mind working fast. "We're not. Are you insane? She robbed you." "She thinks she robbed me," I said. I tapped my laptop. "She thinks she just destroyed the only proof. She thinks it's my word against hers again. She thinks she's safe." I looked at Simone, a grim smile touching my lips. "She just handed me the rope to hang her." "What are you talking about?" "She's sloppy. She's always been sloppy. She stole the paper, but she doesn't know about the digital copies, the bank records, the Instagram screenshots I took last night, all time-stamped, the original email. It's all on my hard drive. And backed up to the cloud." I closed the empty box. "Let her think she won this round. Let her get comfortable. I'm not using this proof now. I'm going to wait. I'll wait until she's standing in front of the entire family, asking for more." 3 weeks passed. My life transformed. The first thing I did with the $3,500 I didn't send to Bianca was hire Melanie, a virtual logistics specialist in Portland. The second thing I did was greenlight the Canadian expansion. The first packages left my apartment for Vancouver the following Monday. The work was a relief. It was clean. It was honest. But my phone was a war zone. It started with Aunt Sylvia. A long, rambling text about family loyalty and how disappointed she was in my callous behavior. Then Uncle Roland called. I let it go to voicemail. "Karina, this is your Uncle Roland. I just spoke to Bianca. I'm hearing some very troubling things. You know, family supports family. You need to fix this." Then Cousin Jenna, then my mother. Bianca had been busy. She had crafted a narrative worthy of a daytime soap opera. She was the struggling sister, cruelly and suddenly cut off during difficult times by a heartless, jealous sibling. I ignored them all. I stacked boxes. I printed labels. I built my business. The doorbell rang on a Saturday. I looked through the peephole. My father. My stomach clenched. I wiped my hands on my jeans and opened the door. He stood there in his pressed golf shirt, looking deeply uncomfortable on my modest porch. "We need to talk about your sister," he said. It wasn't a request. "I'm busy, Dad. I'm in the middle of packing orders." I stepped aside. He walked in. His eyebrows lifted as he took in the scene. My apartment was no longer a home. It was a fulfillment center. Stacks of boxes coded by SKU, shipping labels printing from a thermal printer. Inventory organized across my dining table and living room floor. "This is..." He paused, touching a hiking pole. "This is more professional than I expected. You sell these?" "Sustainable bamboo core, recycled aluminum tips," I said. I didn't mention the 3 patents or the feature in Outdoor Enthusiast last month. He wandered through the maze of products. "Bianca says you're being unreasonable." "Does she?" I sealed another box with practiced efficiency. "Did she explain what she was doing with $3,500 a month while earning $52,000? "She has obligations." "Like what? The Audi payments? The designer purses? The weekend trips to Charleston?" My father flinched. He knew. "She says she'll be homeless if you don't help her, Karina. She told your mother she's looking at shelters." "She'll need to downsize, Dad. She won't be sleeping under a bridge." I printed another label. "There's a very big difference between helping someone and enabling them." He was quiet for a long time, just watching me work. The efficiency, the system, the sheer volume of product. "I see," he said finally. His voice was different. The anger was gone, replaced by something I couldn't identify. Confusion, maybe respect. "You're right." He left without another word. After he left, I called Matilda, my business mentor. "The UK distributor is in," she announced before I could even say hello. "They want your entire winter line, Karina. 30% more than we projected." My heart hammered. "For real?" "This means you can lease that warehouse space we looked at," she said, her voice brimming with excitement. "Without Bianca's $3,500 draining my accounts each month," I said, "the business has exploded." International orders from Canada were followed by a surge from Australia. 3 weeks ago, I'd hired Jenna to manage customer service and Ben to handle shipping logistics. I signed the lease on the 5,000-square-foot warehouse the following Tuesday. That afternoon, I arrived home to find Bianca sitting on my doorstep. Her makeup was smeared. Her eyes were red. She sprang to her feet when she saw me. "Finally, I've been waiting for hours." Her voice carried down the street. My neighbor, Mrs. Donaldson, paused while watering her flowers. "I have a key in my purse, Bianca," I said quietly, unlocking the door. "You're ruining my life." She followed me inside, her voice escalating. "I had to sell 3 of my purses. The bank called about my car payments." "Lower your voice." "Why should I? You don't care that I might lose everything. My apartment, my car." "I didn't create this situation," I said, setting my laptop bag down carefully on the counter. "I just stopped enabling it." "You think you're so perfect with your little business," she sneered, her voice cracking. "Dad always said I was the successful one. You're just jealous." The old insult didn't even sting anymore. "Success isn't what you buy, Bianca. It's what you build." "Easy for you to say when you're making all this money." She gestured wildly at my modest, box-filled apartment. "While I'm suffering. You make $52,000 a year, Bianca. That's more than millions of Americans. Your suffering is self-inflicted." She stared at me, her face contorted with rage. She had no more moves to play. The tears weren't working. The insults weren't working. She stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. 2 hours later, her Instagram showed a new post, a stock photo of a sunset with a long caption about toxic family members and setting boundaries with people who don't understand financial hardship. I laughed. Then I got back to work. 3 days later, Simone stopped by with takeout and her laptop. "You need to see this." She opened a folder of screenshots, Bianca's social media history from the last 2 years. I did a little digging. Simone had cross-referenced my bank statements with Bianca's posts. "The timestamp on this promotion celebration dinner? 2 hours after you sent her money last August." Simone scrolled through image after image. "This Gucci bag, the day after your transfer in June. This spontaneous trip to Atlanta, the same day your money hit her account." My phone rang. It was Matilda. "Karina, turn on your email, right now." Her voice was shaking. "RVO wants a meeting. Recreational Ventures Online. They're interested in carrying Crestwood Terrain products in their flagship stores." "Holy shit," Simone whispered, reading the email over my shoulder. We were halfway through a bottle of champagne when my phone rang again. Dad. I braced myself for criticism. "Hello?" "I've been looking at your website," he said without preamble, "and I called that outdoor magazine that featured you." I waited. "You make more in a year than I did in my first 5 at the firm." The admission hung between us. I didn't fill the silence. "I'd like to see your operation," he said finally. "Your real operation, not just the boxes in your dining room." The next day, I gave him a tour of the new warehouse. He studied the inventory system. He asked about profit margins. He examined the manufacturing contracts. I didn't understand, he admitted, as we stood among pallets of hiking gear. I thought real businesses needed office buildings and dozens of employees. I valued what I recognized. He paused near a wall of international shipping labels. I also didn't understand my role in enabling Bianca's deception, or how I dismissed what you built. That night, my email pinged. A new message from Dad. Subject, important. Family Thanksgiving, my house, 2 p.m. This is not optional. I stared at the screen, my finger hovering over the accept button. On Thanksgiving, the scent of roasting turkey and sage filled my father's house. It was the same smell from the same house, but everything felt different. I adjusted the green bean casserole on the crowded counter, watching my mother fuss over the marshmallow topping on the sweet potatoes. "Kelsey, would you check if we need more ice?" Dad called from the dining room, where he was arranging place settings with military precision. The front door opened. The house went quiet. Bianca arrived, 40 minutes late. But something was wrong. Gone was the leased Audi. Through the window, I spotted a used Toyota with a peeling bumper sticker. Her camel coat wasn't the designer label she normally flaunted. Her purse was a simple, worn leather bag. She was making a show of her new, humble reality. "Sorry I'm late," she announced, kissing the air beside Aunt Sylvia's cheek. Her eyes scanned the room, landing on me with calculated precision. Traffic was terrible. Dad watched our interaction carefully, his eyes narrowing when Bianca hugged me with exaggerated affection. "Kelsey, you look great. Business must be booming." I returned the hug. "Hello, Bianca." We gathered around the table. Uncle Roland carved the turkey. Aunt Sylvia distributed wine. Before we ate, Bianca raised her glass, commanding attention. "I just want to say how grateful I am." Her voice had that practiced awards ceremony cadence. "For family, during hard times we support each other. That's what family does." Her eyes settled meaningfully, pointedly on me. The message couldn't be clearer. "Yes," Dad said, clearing his throat. "Family support is important. Speaking of which, Bianca, how's work going at Nolan's?" Bianca dabbed her napkin at her perfect lipstick. "Actually, there might be changes coming. The retail sector is just so unstable right now, and there's talk about layoffs." A dramatic pause. Her gaze slid to me again, expectant, hopeful. She was setting the stage for a new financial request in front of the entire family. "That's odd," Dad said. His fork was suspended midair. The dining room fell silent. Even Uncle Roland's knife stopped mid-slice. "What's odd, Dad?" Bianca asked, her voice pitching just a little higher. "I called your manager at Nolan's last week." The color drained from Bianca's face. You what?" "I spoke with Karen Wilson, your general manager." Dad set his fork down with deliberate care. "I told her I was updating my files for a family trust. A very interesting conversation." He looked directly at Bianca. "She mentioned you've been a store supervisor for 3 years, a valued one. But she was very clear. You were never an assistant manager." Silence. "Dad, why would you do that?" Bianca stammered. "Because I wanted to understand." His voice was quiet but held no anger, only a deep, profound weariness. "Since that night at Bottega's, I've been investigating what else I believed without question." Aunt Sylvia leaned forward, her eyes darting between them. "What's going on, Theodore?" "Ask Bianca," Dad said. "Ask her about her corporate success stories." All eyes turned to my sister. Her fingers trembled against her water glass. "The economy's been difficult," she attempted, her voice wavering. "Everyone stretches the truth on social media." "Stretches the truth?" Uncle Roland repeated, his eyebrows climbing. "You mean those Facebook posts about your executive retreats in Vancouver? Those weren't true." "It wasn't untrue," Bianca defended weakly. "I was working toward that position." "So Kelsey paid for all of it," Aunt Sylvia said. It wasn't a question. She turned to me. "You've been supporting her." I nodded once. "For 2.5 years," Dad added, his voice flat. "Over $100,000. while we all praised Bianca's success and dismissed Karina's business as a hobby. Bianca's eyes welled with tears. The waterworks. The final desperate move. "I never asked to be compared to her," she cried. "I just needed help getting established." "Established?" Uncle Roland snorted. "Karina built a business from her apartment floor while you spent her money on designer watches." "That's enough," I said, surprising myself. "This isn't about public humiliation." The doorbell rang, breaking the horrible tension. It was Simone, holding a bottle of wine and a bright smile that faltered as she read the room. "Sorry I'm late. Traffic on I-95 was—" "Am I interrupting?" "Not at all," Dad said, pulling out a chair for her. "Come in, Simone." Simone, ever my friend, took one look at my face and launched into action. "Kelsey, I brought that article from the Outdoor Retailers Convention. Your new hiking poles got Best in Show for Sustainable Design." Dad pounced on the subject change. "Karina's company is expanding into 3 new markets next quarter," he announced, his voice booming with a pride I had never heard before. "She just signed a deal with RVO. My daughter built something remarkable right under our noses." The words landed like a physical touch. My father had never ever described my business that way. The conversation shifted permanently. Uncle Roland, suddenly fascinated, started asking me about small business loans. Aunt Sylvia wanted to know about e-commerce platforms. The family's center of gravity, which had orbited Bianca for 30 years, had just shifted decisively to me. Bianca, forgotten, excused herself to the kitchen. Her movements were stiff. Dad followed her. Their voices drifted through the swinging door as I helped Aunt Sylvia arrange pumpkin pie slices. "I believed everything you told me," Dad's voice cracked. "You made me dismiss your sister's real achievements because they didn't fit what I understood as success." "You always expected perfection," Bianca fired back, her voice raw. "What was I supposed to do when I couldn't deliver? You pushed me to compete with her my whole life." "That's not true. We gave you every advantage because we thought you needed more support. Karina always seemed so capable on her own." The plate in my hand suddenly felt like it weighed 100 pounds. All those years I thought I wasn't good enough, when really they just thought I didn't need them. Bianca burst from the kitchen, mascara streaming down her face. "I need to go," she announced, grabbing her purse. "Bianca, we haven't had dessert," my mother protested weakly. "I've had enough," my sister snapped. She yanked open the front door. "Thanks for the lovely holiday." The door slammed, rattling the autumn wreath on its hook. Through the window, I watched her climb into the used Toyota, her shoulders shaking as she fumbled with the keys. Dad appeared beside me, his reflection joining mine in the dark glass. "Have I been wrong?" he asked quietly. "About everything?" I turned to face him. The lines around his eyes were deep with genuine confusion. "Not about everything, Dad," I answered. "Just about the important things." Back at the table, Simone passed slices of pie. Dad cleared his throat, waiting for the table's attention. "I'd like to propose a toast," he said, lifting his glass, "to seeing people as they truly are, not as we need them to be." His eyes met mine across the table. Our glasses met over the remains of the Thanksgiving dinner, and for the first time in my life, I felt fully, completely seen at my father's table. 2 weeks before Christmas, the family gathered for our traditional pre-holiday dinner. The tree sparkled with the same vintage ornaments from my childhood. Bianca arrived, her posture a careful study in humility. Her sweater was from Target. Her hair was in a simple bun. She was playing the part of the reformed daughter. "Everyone," she stood in the archway, her voice soft. "I have an announcement." The room quieted. "I've enrolled in business courses at the community college," she announced. Her smile was bright, but her eyes were tracking everyone's reactions. "Winter semester starts next month." "How wonderful, dear," Aunt Sylvia clapped. I sipped my sparkling water, saying nothing. "It's not cheap, though," Bianca continued, her voice softening into that familiar, hesitant tone that always signaled a request. "The books alone are almost $400. And there it was. The implication hovered in the air. Just a little help, it's for education. It's Christmas. Dad shifted in his chair. Unlike the old days, he didn't reach for his wallet, he just watched me, waiting. Aunt Sylvia slid onto the couch beside me, patting my knee. Family helps family, Karina, especially during Christmas. She leaned closer. It's just textbooks, nothing extravagant. Surely you can help your sister improve herself. Uncle Roland cleared his throat. You've done so well for yourself, Karina. We're all so proud. Surely you can spare a little for your sister's education, Christmas spirit and all that. The pressure was immense. The entire family holding its breath, waiting for me to write the check and restore the old, comfortable order. Bianca stood by the fireplace, the perfect picture of someone just trying to get by. My throat tightened. The weight of their expectations was suffocating. Actually, I said, standing up, I'd like everyone's attention. I walked to the dining room table and opened my laptop. I turned the screen toward the room. Bianca, I'm glad you're interested in business education. I have something better than textbook money to offer. I clicked the mouse. The first slide appeared, the Crestwood Terrain Outfitters logo, side by side with the RVO emblem. Last week, I finalized the partnership with RVO. Crestwood will have dedicated floor space in 3 of their flagship stores, starting in February. I advanced the slide, a growth chart with a line shooting upward like a rocket. Since redirecting my resources back into my own company, we've seen 340% growth in just 6 months. Aunt Sylvia's mouth formed a perfect O. Uncle Roland took his glasses off. I clicked through photos of the new warehouse, my smiling employees, Jenna and Ben, packing orders, the expanded product lines. So instead of money for textbooks, I looked directly at Bianca, my voice steady and clear. I'm offering you a paid internship in business operations, $20 an hour, 20 hours a week. You want to learn business? Fine. Learn from someone who actually built one, from the ground up. The room was dead silent. Dad leaned forward, his eyes fixed on my quarterly revenue reports. This is remarkable, Karina, he whispered. Bianca's face cycled through a dozen emotions: surprise, embarrassment, calculation, and finally, outrage. I can't work for my sister, she blurted out, her cheeks flushing red. It would be awkward. Dad stood up. His voice was firm, with a finality I had never heard him use with her. It's a legitimate opportunity, Bianca. It's a real job, with real mentorship. It's more than I ever offered you. Take it or leave it. But the Bank of Karina is closed. The family stared, witnessing the clear choice: authentic help versus financial enabling. And in that moment, the power dynamic of the Pierce family was rewritten for good. Uncle Roland was the first to speak. Karina, about those small business loans, what bank did you use? Aunt Sylvia chimed in. Do you have an investment advisor? I'm looking at my retirement account. Cousin Jenna, are you hiring for marketing? The spotlight had shifted. Bianca, standing alone by the fireplace, was no longer the center of the universe. She retreated to the kitchen, defeated. Later, as we gathered around the table, Dad raised his glass. To the future of our family, may we all learn from Karina's perseverance and honesty. Beneath the table, Bianca's hand found mine. It wasn't a grab. It wasn't a demand. It was a light, hesitant touch. When I looked at her, something in her eyes had shifted. The artifice was gone. She just looked tired and real. I'll start after New Year's, she whispered so low only I could hear. If the offer still stands. I squeezed her hand once, then let go. It does. 8 a.m. Don't be late. The wooden box I'd brought sat by my plate. I slid it over to her. Inside was a professional business planner, her name engraved on the cover, and a key card to the warehouse office. "Not a handout, Bianca," I said. "A hand up." Dad caught my eye across the table and nodded once. A small gesture carrying the weight of 30 years of misunderstanding finally set right. 6 months later, the giant red scissors felt heavy and real in my hands. I stood before the glass storefront of Crestwood Terrain Outfitters, Savannah flagship. A crowd had gathered. Local business owners, loyal customers, and a reporter from the Savannah Business Journal. "Ready?" Matilda whispered beside me, her silver hair catching the spring sunshine. I nodded, scanning the crowd until I found them. Dad and Bianca, standing side by side near the front. Dad gave me a thumbs up, beaming. Bianca offered a small, genuine smile. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she wore a Crestwood Terrain staff polo, one she had earned. The ribbon parted with a satisfying snick. Applause erupted. "Congratulations," the reporter said, extending her hand. "Your company's growth trajectory is remarkable, especially in the last year. What changed?" I caught my father's eye before answering. I redirected my resources. I stopped investing in stagnation, and I started investing in growth. That evening, we sat at the same table at Bottega's, the same white tablecloth, the same view of the glittering river, but everything was different. Dad raised his glass, his signet ring catching the light. "To my daughter, Karina, who taught us all what success really means." I didn't shrink. I didn't minimize it. I just nodded and let the words settle. Bianca, seated beside him, raised her water glass. "And to learning that appearances aren't achievements." I studied my sister. She'd gotten a B+ in her marketing class. She'd downsized to an apartment she could actually afford on her combined salary from Nolan's and her internship. She deleted her Instagram account. "The $105,000 was worth it," I said, surprising them both. Dad frowned. "How can you say that, after what she did?" "Because I learned what I'm worth," I said, taking a sip of Cabernet. "And I learned what I'm not willing to sacrifice for approval anymore." Back at the warehouse the next Tuesday, Dad arrived for his weekly visit. He'd been volunteering his accounting expertise to help me and 2 other local startups navigate tax season. "You've got another applicant for your scholarship program," he said, passing me the documentation. The Crestwood Women in Business Scholarship Fund had started small, just enough to cover books for 1 community college student. Now it supported 3. It was funded entirely by the profits I once diverted to maintain Bianca's illusions. "Speaking of which," Dad said, pride softening his voice, "Bianca got an A on her marketing final. She used Crestwood's recycled packaging initiative as her case study." I nodded. I already knew. She had shown me every draft, hungry for feedback, not validation. That evening, alone in my home office, I packed a special order myself, a set of hiking poles with custom grips for a customer with arthritis, a reminder of where I started. My phone chimed with a banking notification. "Transfer received, $500 from Bianca Pierce. Memo first repayment." It was a small gesture, but it represented a massive shift. I smiled, filing the digital receipt in a new folder on my laptop, a folder marked New Beginnings. Sometimes the best revenge isn't humiliation. It's the quiet, undeniable moment when the truth finally speaks for itself. It's when you realize that standing firm on your boundaries didn't end your relationships. It just transformed them into something honest. If this story resonated with you, leave a like and consider subscribing. You can also drop any comment below, even just one word. Maybe tell me where you're watching from, or what time it is right now. Sometimes one word is enough to say you were here.